We're on 33b1 on the bottom by the Mishnah. And now we're going to come to the shofar blowing. So we actually have to give a bit of an introduction. As you all know, the shofar today, we blow 100 times, 100 sounds. And we blow it a tekiah, a shavarim, which is the 3 short blats, 2, 2, 2, a teruah, 2, 2, 2, 2, 2, 2, 2, 2, 2, and another tekiah after that. Toot. So that's the first one. We also have tekiah, shavarim tekiah, a tekiah, 2, 2, 2, 2. And then we also have tekiah, teruah tekiah, which is a tekiah, a long blast, the 9 short blasts, and then another blast. How did we come up with this number? And we blow them in such a different ways that we get to 100 sounds. Biblically speaking, we may have only required 3 sounds, possibly 6 sounds, at most 9 sounds. 1 for kingship, 1 for remembrances, and 1 for shofar. Malchias, the chronias, shofar. So how did we get to 100? Well, we're going to see it from this Gemara. Because in fact, how do I know that a shavarim is 2, 2, 2? The word shavarim doesn't tell me that. How do I know the word teruah is 2, 2, 2, 2, 2, 2, 2, 2, 2, 2, 2, 2, 2? Because of that uncertainty about what is and what isn't, as you work your way through the Mishnah and the Gemara, you got to wait for it to flow until you get to the way we do it today. Okay? So be patient with this. Okay? Because it doesn't sound, because biblically speaking, we barely had any sounds. And so this is what it's all over here. So, and how long are these sounds? All of that is built on this Mishnah right over here. So here we go. Says the Mishnah, say the tekiyos, the order of the shofar blasts, shalosh, are 3 sets of 3 sounds each. Tekiah, teruah, tekiah. What happened to shvarim? The answer is, at this moment in time, teruah means maybe a shvarim, or maybe a teruah means a teruah. Maybe a teruah means like we know it, or maybe it means 2, 2, 2. You begin to see how we get to 100 because of an uncertainty of what anything means. So we got 3 sets. What's 3 sets? Tekiah, teruah, tekiah, 3 times. 1 for kingship, 1 for remembrances, and 1 for shofar. That's it. Game's over. Boom. Okay. Sheer tekiah, the length of the tekiah, b'shalosh teruahs, the length of 3 teruahs. Sheer teruah, and the length of a teruah is shalosh yevavos, is 3 whimpers. Does this make any sense here? Let's look again. Sheer tekiah, b'shalosh.
Sorry, I was a little late.
No problem. We just began the Mishnah, so I'll repeat again.
Very
Very good.
now?
We're right at the Mishnah on 33b1. I gave an introduction. I'm going to repeat the introduction. It's important. We blow 100 sounds. We blow 100 sounds. By the way, welcome back, Jared. Good to see you back where you belong. Now, we blow 100 sounds, right? How do we get to 100 sounds? Because biblically speaking, you only need maybe 3 sounds, possibly 6 sounds, at the most 9 sounds. The real problem is we blow it, as you know, tekiah, shivarim, teruah, tekiah. Except what is a shivarim and what is a teruah? How do we know a shivarim is 2, 2, 2 and a teruah is 2, 2, 2, 2, 2, 2, 2, 2, 2, 2, 2? That's problem number one. Number two, in laying it out, why only with 3 sets? Because one for Malchias, one for Zechrinus, one for Shaitas, one for kingship, one for remembrances, and one for Shofar, right? So how do we get to 100? Because we unfortunately don't really know what Shavarim and Teruah mean, and so we got to blow it in many different ways in order to get to the possible 3 set that is biblically required. So let's begin the Mishnah again. Seder Teruah Tekiyos Shalosh, Al Shalosh Shalosh. The order of the shofar blast are 3 sets, one for Malchias, one for Zechariah, one for Shofars, of 3 sounds. What 3 sounds? Tekiah, Teruah, Tekiah. But what happened to Shvarim? Because the question is, what is a Teruah? Maybe a Teruah is a Shvarim. Maybe a Teruah is just a Teruah. Or maybe Teruah means Shivarim Teruah. Right? So we don't know what it means. We don't know what the word Teruah means. Now the Mishnah says further, Shir Tekiah Kishleisha Teruahs. The length of the Tekiah 2 is like the length of 3 Teruahs. Ushia Teruah Kishleisha Yavavos. And the length of Teruah is like 3 whimpers. Do we know what any of this means? Not in particular. So, read number 8 on the bottom. A teruah consists of 3 of the shortest possible notes sounded consecutively, like a 3-note whimper. Others explain that a teruah consists of 3 groups of whimpers, with 3 short notes in each group. Thus, the teruah contains 9 consecutive whimpers in all, which is the way we blow a teruah. 9 sounds. Our Mishnah describes the biblical teruah as the staccato sound that is nowadays called a teruah. The Gemara, of course, will have another opinion. And given all the opinions, you're going to see by the time we hit the end of the Gemara, we're going to have a clarity why we don't blow 9, we blow 100. Because of all the confusion about what all of this means. Okay, so this is where we're at. Taka b'rishayna, if one guy blew on the first set, umashach b'shniya b'shnayim, if one blew the first tekiah of a set normally, and the second tekiah, that means the last tekiah shvarim teruah, tekiah, the last tekiah, he blows it for 6 seconds, he blows it double time for the duration of 2 ordinary tekiyahs. It doesn't matter. Ein biyodei ela achas. He only has 1 shofar blowing for its credit. The sets have to go together. Mi sheberach v'achakach nimnon eloi shofar. If one davens the musaf without blowing shofar, and afterwards a shofar becomes available to him, toikeu ma'riach v'toike shalosh pamin. He should blow tekiah, teruah, tekiah 3 times, 1 for Malchis, 1 for Zechrinus, 1 for Shofars. So if he doesn't have it, and he davened the whole musaf without a shofar, and then he gets a shofar, then he should blow it afterwards. What? 1 set for each of them, for a total of 9 sounds. Now the Mishnah ends with something that's interesting. Kishem shashliach tzibur chayiv, just like the shliach tzibur, the mechazin is mechayiv to pray the musaf prayer. Kach kol yochid v'yochid chayiv. So too, each and every individual is obligated to daven the musaf. They are not, according to this man, the Omar, moitzi from the bat filah. They are not moitzi from the shliach tzibur, from the emissary of the congregation. Each person has to pray for himself. Rabbi Gamliel says, and this is what we hold, shliach tzibur moitzi is rabbi mideicha bosei. The emissary of a congregation does discharge the public's obligation for them of davening. This machlokes here at the end of the Mishnah is not just for Rosh Hashanah, but is in fact for all year long. Does the shliach tzibur kishameya ka'oina? if I listen to the Shliach Tzibur, is it like I am saying it myself? So in other words, I don't have to say Shemona Esrei. I can stand quietly and listen with intent to the Shliach Tzibur repeating the Shemona Esrei, which is what we actually do hold. Today that everybody knows how to daven, we do have the stiller Shemona Esrei, the quiet Shemona Esrei. But in fact, the Shliach Tzibur's repeating of the Shemona Esrei is the Iker. According to Rabbi Gamliel, and that is the way we hold. Says the Gemara. Now again, be patient with this Gemara. It does not sound off with the way we have Shofar today. Follow it through all the way to the end, and then we'll get to how did we get to 100 sounds? Here we go.
I was just going to ask that.
Okay, exactly. You're beginning to see it. Because is a trua just a trua? Is a trua really just a shvarim? 2, 2, 2. Or is it a combination of both? 2, 2, 2, 2, 2, 2, 2, 2, 2, 2, 2. Or is it a broken combination? 2, 2, 2, a breath. 2, 2, 2, 2, 2, 2, 2, 2, 2, 2, 2. Called the neshima, stage neshimas, with 2 breaths. In other words, before Musaf, we blow 2, 2, 2, 2, 2, 2, 2, 2, 2, 2, 2, 2, 2, with no breath in the middle. In Musaf, we blow 2, 2, 2, 2, 2, 2, 2, 2, 2, 2, 2, 2, 2, 2, 2, 2, 2. By the time you turn around with all of these things, and you got to do it 3 times, right? By definition, you get to 100. So there you go. But you're going to have to be patient because we're going to get to it. Here we go. For Tanya, we learn Shia Tekiah Kichua, but we learned in a Brisa that the Shia of a Tekiah is like a single Teruah. Rabaya, no, it's not a contradiction between the Brisa and the Mishnah. They're both saying the same thing, just in different language. Tana Digon, our Tana in the Mishnah, Kochashiv Tekiah, the Kula Bobi, Mitrua, the Kula Bobi. He's counting the keys of all 3 sets of blasts and the truest of all 3 blasts, of all 3 sets. Tana Bara Ka Chashiv Kad Baba B'Sulai. The Tana the Brisa is only describing 1 set and no more. But either way, and this rule does apply, the tekiah must equal the length of the teruah. But if we blow a shvarim teruah, it needs to be the length of the shvarim teruah, because in fact we're not sure what the teruah is. So the tekiah is always the same length as what you blow in the middle. Says the Gemara Vayta. And stop me, guys, if I'm not being clear about it, okay? Shir teruah b'shovash shivavos. The length of a teruah is like 3 whimpers. V'atanya, but we learn shir teruah kishloish shivarim. The length of a teruah is like 3 shivarims. This is the first time we just banged into the word shivarim, right? What is a shivarim? That's more like a moan. Oi, oi, oi. It's longer than a whimper. A whimper is a moaning is oi, do, much longer. So now in this, the Tana and the Mishnah and the Brisa are certainly arguing. Dixit, because it says in the pasuk, Yom Teruah Yelachem. A day of Teruah shall it be for you. By the way, it needs to be pointed out now. Nowhere in the Torah does it actually mention the word shofar with regard to Rosh Hashanah. All it says is Yom Teruah Yelachem. It should be a day of Teruah sounding for you. So the Gemara later on is going to say, in that case, he said it's a shofar. Maybe we should use a trumpet. So, anyways, we go further. Diksiv Yom Teruah Yelachem. It should be a day of Teruah sounding for you. Umetagaminon and Targum. That would be Targum. Unkelis Hager. Unkelis the Ger who converted to Israel, who were created to Judaism, and wrote Unkelis Targum in Yomi Yevovo Yehelachai. It should be a day of Yevovo. Yevovo sounding to be for you. So Teruah is described by Ugelis as Yevovo. And regarding the mother of Sisera, Sisera wanted to kill out the Jews, and again, instead the Jews won, and he was killed by Yael, and his mother was waiting for him to come back, and she cried. Here's the word, Im Sisera. Through the window she looked, and she cried, Sisera's mother. So now we know that the word Yevavo refers to a matter of crying. But what kind of crying? It means moaning. That's like the Shavarim. Do, do, do. And the other one says, no, it's sobbing. And therefore he describes the Teruah as a series of short whimpers. Take a look at number 25, but look at the last paragraph on the page. We have found the explanation of Rashi and Taishas that the Teruah is a staccato sound consisting of very short consecutive notes, meaning our Teruah. However, the Tur, citing the Bala Yitur, describes the Teruah as a continuous quavering blast. This appears to be the opinion of the Rambam as well. The Migdal Ois testifies that is how the Teruah was traditionally blown in Eretz Yisrael in his day. And to this day, some communities blow the Teruah in this manner. If you ever daven by the Sfardim blow the Teruah not the way we blow the Teruah. We blow the Teruah. They blow it as a wailing. Like that. Like a wailing sound. Essentially, their tongue moves sideways as opposed to ours in and out. Okay? Further, we're on 33b3. 33b3. Jerry, Jeff, everybody on this is following so far? I'm assuming everybody's following. Okay. Tanu Rabbanan.
We're okay. We're okay.
We're all good? Jeff, you have any questions? We're good.
No, so far so good.
So far so good. Okay, good. Tanu Rabbanan. Minayin 33b3. Minayin Shebeshayfa. How do we know that the true blast of a Rosh Hashanah must be sounded from a shayfer? The Torah never mentions a shayfer. Talmud Laima, the pasuk says with regard to Yovel, the Jubilee year, the blast that we blow on Yom Kippur on the Jubilee year, shayfer teruah, you shall sound the shayfer blast of a teruah. I only know that I have to use a shayfer on Yovel, on the Yom Kippur of Yovel. The Rosh Hashanah minayin. How do I know that on Rosh Hashanah shayfer is to be sounded? Talmud Laima, b'chodesh hashvi'i, in the 7th month. She'ein Talmud Laima b'chodesh hashvi'i. Whoa. No, sorry about that. I got a call from Florida Power and Light. There must be a storm coming. Right? Anyways, so there we go. Anyways, so Talmud Loimar Ba'avati Shayfer Trua. Ainli Ela B'Yovel. I only know that you need a shayfer for the Yom Kippur of Yovel. But Rosh Hashanah Minayin, how do I know that on every Rosh Hashanah I got to use a shayfer as well? Talmud Loimar B'Chodesh Hashvi. In the pasuk with regard to the Yovel blowing the shayfer on Yom Kippur of Yovel, the pasuk starts off with saying B'Chodesh Hashvi, in the 7th month. She'ei Talmud Loimar B'Chodesh Hashvi. The pasuk doesn't need to say in the 7th month. since obviously Yom Kippur always falls out on the 10th day of the 7th month. Ma Talmud Loime B'Chodesh HaShvi. So why does the pasuk come and add the extra word B'Chodesh HaShvi? Sheyiu kol teruah shel Rosh shel Chodesh Shvi zeh kezeh, that all the blowings, the true blasts, are in the 7th month should be alike. That means on Rosh Hashanah as well as Yom Kippur of Yovel, the blast should be made with a shofar. Uminayin shepshuta lefanel. How do I know that tekiyos, the straight blasts, go first, and that the other blasts, the whimpering or moaning blasts, the shvar and teruah, go in the middle? Talmud loima v'avarta shofar teruah. The pasuk says, "You shall sound." Avarta sound the shofar blast of the trua. So avarta is an alludes to the straight to the shofar. Boom, the blast sound. Minayim shipshuta lachre. How do I know that afterwards? In other words, it's bracketed by tekiyos, that you have a tekiah first, the tekiah last, and the broken sounds in the middle. Talmud loima taviru shofar. The pasuk goes further. You shall sound the shofar. I only know this with regard to Yovel. Rosh Hashanah minayin Talmud loima b'chodesh hashvi, in the 7th month. We're now on today's daf 34a1. 34a1. She'ein Talmud loima b'chodesh hashvi. Now it didn't have to tell me the 7th month because I know that Yom Kippur always falls out of the 7th month. Ma Talmud loima b'chodesh hashvi, she called to ruis hachodesh hashvi zeh kezeh, that all the true blasts need to be the same. All the true blasts need to be alike. So in other words, Rosh Hashanah, as on Yom Kippur and Yovel, the truos are preceded by a tekiah before and a tekiah afterwards. So says the Gemara, minayin l'shloisha shel shalosh shalosh. How do I know that I got to do 3 sets consisting of the 3 blasts, as we talked about? In other words, 9 sounds, 3 sounds for Malchias, 3 sounds for Zechariah, and 3 sounds for shofars. Says the Gemara, Talmud loima v'avarta shofar teruah. Regarding the Yom Kippur of Yovel, it says you shall sound the shofar blast of Teruah. And regarding you, Rosh Hashanah, it says Shabbat sign Zichron Teruah, a rest day, a remembrance of Teruah sounds. Yoim, and there's another pasuk that it says by Rosh Hashanah, Yoim Teruah Yelochem. It shall be a day of Teruah sounding for you. Minayin litenes ha'oimez shel zeh b'zeh. The shel zeh b'zeh. How do I know to apply that it says by Rosh Hashanah to Yom Kippur, and what it says by Yom Kippur and apply it to Rosh Hashanah? Since Teruah is mentioned once concerning Yom Kippur and twice concerning Rosh Hashanah, how do I know that this equals blowing 3 sets on Rosh Hashanah? Talmud loimar shevi shevi. In both cases, by Rosh Hashanah and by Yom Kippur, it says shevi. It comes to create a gezerah shava, a comparison. Ha-ketzad. How is the shofar blown? Shalom shem teisha, 3 sets, which equal 9 in all. Tekiah, teruah, tekiah 3 times. Again, we don't know what a teruah is. Is a teruah just 2, 2, 2, 2, 2, 2, 2, 2, or in fact, is a teruah our shvarim 2, 2, 2, or is it a combination 2, 2, 2, 2, 2, 2, 2, 2, 2, 2, 2, 2, or it is a broken combination 2, 2, 2, breath 2, 2, 2, 2, 2, 2, 2, 2, 2, 2, which of course is beginning to give us our understanding of how we're getting to 90, because you got to blow 3 sets of each of these. So by the time you turn it around, you get to 90, and when you get to 90, we already make it 100. But anyways, here we go. The length of the tekiah is like a trua. Shir teruah b'shalosh shvarim are like the length of 3 shvarim. And again, we have a machlokes, is a shvarim a moan, or a shvarim a whimper. Hi, Tana. Our the Tana of Abaraisa. Mikara maisilai be'ekesha. Initially, I learned the linkage of Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur blast through a hekesh, And now you want to learn from a Gezeirah Shabbat. First of all, we have the Hekish before. If you remember what we said before, we sought to learn it out from the fact that it says the 7th month, right? That the blats of Rosh Hashanah and Kippur are linked through a Hekish of Shiva Shiva, right? But then at the end, they wanted to learn it out from a Gezeirah Shabbat. Make up your mind. So says the Gemara, Hachikama. Ilav Gezeirah Shabbat having Masnisa Be'akesha. Were it not for the Gezeirah Shabbat, I would have learned it out from the Hekish. But Hashta the Ikka Gezeirah Shabbat Hekesha Leitzarach. Now that I have a Gezeirah Shabbat, the Hekish is not needed. Look at number 10. Number 10 on the bottom. One may not expand the Gezeirah Shabbat on his own discretion. Only in the specific instances that it was taught by Moshe Rabbeinu on Sinai is a Gezeirah Shabbat deemed valid. Other methods, however, may be expanded even without a specific tradition. The Tana therefore we will learn that if the Gezeirah Shabbat of 7th, Shavi, had not been among those taught to Moshe for an exposition, so therefore if that had not been taught, so we wouldn't have had a tradition that this is a Gezeirah Shabbat. You can use these two words for a comparison. The words in the 7th month would nonetheless have established a Hekish, teaching that the blasts of Rosh Hashanah may be like those of Yom Kippur and Yomi.
Yitzhak,
yes.
What is a Hekish?
Okay, Hekish is a comparison. In other words, I've got something over here, where I have nothing traditionally, but I look at it and I say, the words over here and the words over here are similar, that I can draw a conclusion about the two of them. A Gezeirah Shabbat, a Gezeirah is a, how do you say Gezeirah in English? It's just skipping my mind. Right, when you establish, Gezeirah is an establishment of a law. A Gezeirah Shabbat, it's an establishment of a togetherness. Shabbat, that they're alike. An establishment that they are alike. Those carry greater weight because those come from Moses on Sinai. He came back and said there are certain words in the Torah that were put here and were put here to tell you that they're completely connected. If we don't have a tradition of this, you can't use them. The fact that it says one word over here, so we wanted to say that there's a Gezeirah Shabbat that came from Mount Sinai of Shavi, the seventh that says by Yom Kippur, and it says it by Rosh Hashanah. So now I've got a comparison. We wanted to say it's a Gezeirah Shabbat, it's from Moses on Sinai. The Gemara says, but even if I didn't have a tradition that these two words could be compared one to the other, I still have the entire phrase. The phrase of, if you remember, the phrase was, what was the phrase? B'chodesh HaShavi, which you didn't need by Yom Kippur, because Yom Kippur always falls out in the 7th month, right? So it's saying it's the 7th month was extra. Because it was extra, therefore it's available for me to make a hekish, to make a comparison to somewhere else that it also has the same words, which is where? By Rosh Hashanah, which also says B'chodesh HaShvi in the 7th month. Now by Rosh Hashanah, that's a chiddush. We needed it to say B'chodesh HaShvi in the 7th month. Why? Because otherwise, how do I know when Rosh Hashanah is? I have to say, Rosh Hashanah is on the first day of the 7th month. Yom Kippur, on the other hand, it clearly says it's on the 10th day. Mitisha al-Tisha, from the eve of the 9th to the eve of the 10th, you shall fast. So the word B'chodesh HaShvi is not necessary. There, if it's not necessary, I can then say, oh, so why did the Torah put in these unnecessary words? It's pointing like an arrow, a blinking light, saying these are extra. Use it for a comparison, known as a hekesh. That we're allowed to do. A gezerah shova is word to word that came from Moses. That's a much different ballgame. So the Gemara here is saying, in fact, we have both. I've got a gezerah shova and I have a hekesh. If I am not allowed to use the gezerah shova because you don't have a tradition that it came from Moses, it's okay. I've got a phrase that's extra, which allows me to use it as a hekesh. Okay?
Good, thank you.
Oh, yeah, that was very good. That's why I wanted us to read number 10, because there's other things, and we're going to bang into other things along the way in Shas. And these are the various different ways in which we can dissect the words in the Torah. We can't on our own simply dissect. There are rules. There are the 13 rules of how one dissects and how one interflows. There's a great book, Jeff, I might get it to you as a present, from Rabbi Stanzaltz. I hope they still publish it. It's called The Talmud. The Talmud. It is excellent. It is excellent. It's published by Random House. Amazing.
Okay.
It's great. It's great. I have it on my shelf here in New York. What do you call it? When we finish today, text me your address. Okay? I know it's Mandarin. Text me your address. I'll get it to you. And it's very good. So now the Gemara goes further. And the following Tana learns it through a gezerah shava. Again, something that came down from Moshe from the trumpets that the Yidden blew in the wilderness when they had to get moving, when they had to move. The Tanya, usekatem teruah, the pasuk says when you blast the teruah, the camps should move. Tekiah b'nei atzma, teruah b'nei atzma. This refers to usekatem teruah. It refers to the sounding of a tekiah separately and a teruah separately. Ata oima, do you say exactly what you just said? Tekiah b'nei atzma, teruah b'nei atzma. It means that a tekiah by itself and a teruah by itself. No. Ela tekiah teruah achasi. But the truth is, the term tekiah and teruah really mean one and the same, and it's simply referring to a teruah. You blow do or do, depending on what a teruah is, and that got the people moving. Kishuhu oimeh ubehakil es hakol sesisku v'loi sariu. When you gather the congregation, you shall sound a tekiah, but not a teruah. That meant that the sound of a tekiah and the sound of a teruah are two different sounds. That a tekiah, the long blast, the one blast is blown, and then the teruah, the broken blast. Havi oima tekiah b'nei atzma, teruah b'nei atzma. Each one was blown separately. Uminayin shipshuta lefanel. How do I know that the single blast, the tekiah, goes before the broken blast, the broken sounds? Talmud loimer usekatem teruah. You shall blow a teruah. We're now on 34A2. 34A2. Okay? Minayin shipshuta lakrel. And from where do we know that you blow another straight blast following the teruah, so that the broken sounds are bracketed between two tekiyas? Talmud loimer teruah yisko. It says a teruah you shall blast. Rabbi, so therefore it means that the tekiah comes afterwards from your journeys. Rabbi Shmuel ben Osher, Rabbi Yochanan ben Beroika oimer, Einit Sarach. You didn't even need this pasuk. Hareyu oimer, the pasuk already says in that very same passage.
Excuse me.
That's okay. Usekatem teruah shenis. When you blast the teruah a second time, when you blast the teruah a second time, she'ain tamud loimer shenis. So what he called, you don't have to say a second time because it's obvious from the word teruah yisko. Ma tamud loimer shenis. Then now we come to a new one. You ready? You ready over there, Jeff? Zeb bin Bona Av. This is a binyan av, the creation of a source, like this. Shekol mokim shenema trua tehei tekiya shniya lo. That wherever a trua is blown, a teruah should be second to it, should follow it. Ainli ela b'midbar. I only know this binyan av, this building up of the source. That what the tekiya comes after every teruah. Teruah doesn't go by itself. Ainli ela b'midbar. I only know this in the wilderness. Rosh Hashanah minayim. How do I know Rosh Hashanah that the tekiya goes before and after the teruah? Talmud loima teruah legezerah shava. It says it to the word teruah over here by the blowing in the midbar in the wilderness, and it says teruah by Rosh Hashanah to create a gezerah shava, a comparison of that word of teruah in the wilderness, which we just proved through a binyan av that it requires having a shofar blast, a tekiya blast before and after. So too over here by Rosh Hashanah, because of the comparison of the words teruah to teruah as a gezerah shava from Moshe Rabbeinu, that what do you call it? That Rosh Hashanah requires a tekiya blast before and afterwards. So Frank the Gemara v'shleisha teruas nemu b'Rosh Hashanah, and in fact the word teruah is mentioned 3 times with regard to Rosh Hashanah. What are the 3 times? Shabbos and Zichra and Teruah, a rest day, a remembrance of the Teruah sound. Yom Teruah, a day of Teruah sounding, it shall be for you. Va'avarta shofar Teruah, and you shall sound the shofar blast of a Teruah. Now, the last pasuk, as we know, actually is by Yovel, is by the Yom Kippur of Yovel, okay? Because that's the only time where it mentions the word shofar. Now, shtei tekiyas l'chol achas va'achas, teaching us that 2 tekiya blasts are required after every teruah. Natsinu lamdin shleishet teruas v'sheish tekiyas never b'Rosh Hashanah. So now we have learned, therefore, that 3 teruah blasts and 6 tekiya blasts were mentioned regarding Rosh Hashanah. Shtayim midivrei Torah, 2 are midivrei Torah because Rosh Hashanah only has 2 psukim. Shabbos and Zichra and Teruah and Yom Teruah. The two of the sets are biblical in nature. And one of them comes from the laws of the Seifrim, meaning it comes from the Nevi'im, from the prophets. Shabbos and Zichra and Teruah, v'avarta shofar Teruah midivrei Torah. Yom Teruah yilachem l'talmudei hubah. That's coming for its own teaching. It's needed to establish the gezerah shava, linking the blast of the true blast of Rosh Hashanah to the true blast of when they moved in the when they traveled in the wilderness. Rav Shmuel ben Achmeni Amar Rav Yonason says as follows: Achas medivrei Torah u'shnayim medivrei Sav. In fact, min Torah you only got to blow 3 blasts, 1 set of 3, not 2 sets of 3. Min Torah you only got to blow 1 set of 3. Ushtayim medivrei Seifrim. And in fact, 2 are only medivrei from the Nevi'im, from the prophets. V'avarta shofar Teruah medivrei Torah. That's 1 set of 3. Shabbos and Zichra and Teruah v'yom Teruah yilachem l'talmudei ba. They're coming to teach their own things. So says the Gemara, Lama talmudei ba. What are they coming to teach? To teach us that the shofar is blown by day, but not by night. Yom Teruah yilachem. A day of Teruah. Right? So, okay, and that's the comparison. So now, the Idach, the other Tana, the Yom V'Layla Minole, how does he know this? Nafkile mi Yom Kippurim. He knows it from Yom Kippurim. By Yom Kippurim, what does it say? V'avarti shofar Teruah b'chodesh hashvi. You shall sound the shofar blast of the Teruah in the 7th month. Be'esar la'chodesh, in the 10th month. V'yom Kippurim, in the day of Kippurim, the day of atonement, you shall sound the shofar. If you want to see the pasuk, look down on the bottom in 26. But Yom Kippur is called a day. So says the Gemara, if you're going to learn it out of the word the Day of Atonement. So it says the Gemara, I mi b'yom ha'kippurim yolef, nigma nami minei l'pshuta l'panev l'pshuta l'achrel. Let him derive from there that the tekiah blast goes before the broken blasts and follow, and the broken blasts are followed by a tekiah blast. Why does he have to come on to the trumpet blasts of the midbar when they traveled? So it says, the Gemara explains, because it says, "V'havarto taviru loy mashmele." The sounds, v'havarto, you shall sound, and taviru, shall you sound, which he based his exposition on, do not, this Tanakama says it doesn't mean tekiah blast. Elamai Darshbe, what does he say? The words Va'avarta Taviru, what are they coming to tell us? Va'avarta, the word Avarta, we're now on 34a3, Midra Ramasna, is like the way Ramasna learned the word Va'avarta. The Amar Ramasna, Va'avarta Derech Havarosa. Havarta means that the shofar must be blown in the manner in which it's carried, which means you cannot blow from the wide side through the narrow side. You blow it through the narrow side through the wide side. Or you can't, or if you somehow invert the shofar, it's no good. Taviru means the Amar Rachmana Nevaret Biyad, that one should carry the shofar in the land in the hand, just like the lulav is carried by hand, so too should the shofar by hand. In other words, don't put it on a stand and blow the shofar, but hold the shofar in your hand. The idach, but the other Tama who uses the words va'avarta to teach us about the tekiyos before and after the truos, the Ramasna, the Mishani b'dibure. The dictum of Ramasna could be learned from when the pasuk changes its usual terminology of tekiah. Okay, it changes its normal terminology of tekiah by switching it to avarta. Taviru biyad le'motzi abrit, and for with regard taviru, forget the word avarta, taviru, right? I don't need this because the gama avara mimoisha, because we learn a gezeira shava of the words avara from Moshe, that Hivarta means the sounding of the shofar. Ksiv hacha, it says over here, V'avarta shofar teruah. The Ksiv hasam, V'yitzav Moshe commanded, V'yaviru, and they sounded kol b'machna, a proclamation throughout the camp. Ma'alahalam v'kol, there, just like the proclamation of Moshe was done, accompanied by a sound, Afkan v'kol. When it says avara, it means, avarta means accompanying with a sound. So we know that avarta means sounding the tekiah, not the carrying of a shofar in the land. And according to the Tana that learned it up, the tekiah blasts before and after the trua from the wilderness. This is the question I mentioned all the way in the first. Well, in the wilderness, when they traveled, when they had to get up to travel, what did they blow? They didn't blow a shofar, they blow a trumpet. So we should also blow trumpets on Rosh Hashanah. Talmud Laima, therefore the pasuk goes out of its way to say, Teku b'chodesh shofar, blow a tekiah with the shofar, b'kesel liyom chagenu, at the moon's renewal, when the moon is covered on our festival day. Liyom chagenu, v'shofar tikka b'chodesh shofar b'kesel, when it's covered liyom chagenu, on the day of our festival. Izeu chag shel chodesh mitzkasaboy, on which Yom Tov is the moon covered. This must be Rosh Hashanah, because Rosh Hashanah is the only Yom Tov on the first day of a month. And it says shofar. So now we're getting, so now that you're all confused, right? So it's possible that biblically speaking, we only have one set of three. Or according to one, you have six, two sets of three, and one is from the prophets. and others say it's 3 sets of 3, so we end up with 9. So how did we get to 100? Ma askin Rabavua Bekisri. Rabavua in Kisri established Tekiya Shloisha Shavarim Shloisha Teruah Tekiya. Tekiya 3 Shavarim Teruah Tekiya. This should sound very familiar because that's what we do. Tekiya 2 Shavarim Teruah 2 2 2 2 2 2 2 2 2. So says the Gemara, what kind of establishment is this? Madashach, yulule yulule. If the term teruah means a sobbing sound, love it tekiya teruah tekiya, then you should be blowing a tekiya teruah tekiya. Tekiya 2, and then the sobbing sound. And then tekiya. If it's moaning, it should be a tekiya, and then 2 2 2, and then a tekiya. What's the purpose of combining the shvarim and teruah? And now we come to our problem. He wasn't sure whether teruah means a moaning sound or a sobbing sound. If it's a moaning sound, it's the sound of our shavarim, the 3, 2 2 2. If it's a sobbing sound, it's the sound of our teruah, 2 2 2 2 2 2 2. So mask if Rav Avira, but on this Rav Avira said the dilma lulule habi, but maybe teruah really means sobbing, which is the teruah. And in that case, you're going to create a separation. You're going to create a separation between the first tekiya and the teruah by sticking in the 3 sounds of the shvarim. But we've been learning now that the teruah has to be bracketed with the tekiya on this side and the tekiya on that side. But if you stick it in shvarim, you break it, you've broken the bracket. So I've got a problem. This will spoil our fulfillment of the requirement to proceed the teruah with the tekiya. Right? Everybody got it so far? Now we're on 34A4. 34A4. Now, the hada the ovid tekiya teruah tekiya. So you're right. He said after blowing in the manner before that I said tekiya shvarim teruah tekiya, he would then add another blast of tekiya teruah tekiya with no shvarim. So now all of a sudden we went from our tekiya shvarim teruah tekiya that you got to blow 9 times, 3 times in the set. We now have another 9 tekiya teruah tekiya that you got to blow 3 times because we're not sure. Now, mask of love Ravina, the dilma gachui havi, but maybe teruah is really the moaning sound, our shvarim, become masapik teruah ben shvarim tekiya. And then according to Ravua, when the teruah, if shvarim is the right sound, then the second tekiya that brackets it at the end is going to be interrupted with the teruah that you're blowing. So he said, you're right. The hada of it tekiya shvarim tekiya. So then I blew a 3rd set of tekiya shvarim tekiya. In other words, I have 30 calls. Now I got 30 sounds. Tekiya shvarim teruah tekiya, tekiya shvarim teruah tekiya, tekiya shvarim teruah tekiya. Then tekiya shvarim tekiya, tekiya shvarim tekiya, tekiya shvarim tekiya. And then I have tekiya teruah tekiya, tekiya teruah tekiya, tekiya teruah tekiya. In other words, what we guys blow before Musaf. It's exactly what we blow before Musaf. Now you know why we blow 3 different sounds, because we're not sure. So says the Gemara, that's still not good. El Rabavu Maitakanto. If the true is a moaning sound, one fulfills it when he blows the tekiya shvarim tekiya. If it's a sobbing sound, then he fulfills it when he blows tekiya teruah tekiya. Make up your mind. What's the purpose of having the first set of sounds? Tekiya, shvarim teruah tekiya. What do I need the shvarim and teruah together? He wasn't sure. Maybe the word teruah, in fact, is both sounds. Do. So I've got to account for the possibility that that's the sound too, and attach it before and afterwards to the tekiyas. Then he should do the opposite. Tekiya teruah shalosh, shavarim tekiya. Then he should do tekiya teruah shalosh, and then shavarim tekiya. Then 3 shavarim tekiyas. Dilma yala bigonach. Maybe it's the opposite way. Maybe instead of being shavarim teruah, do, maybe it's the flip side. Maybe it's do. How come you don't account for that? Which would mean, by the way, that we would have to blow 110 sounds. Same for the Gemara. Sama de milsa ki misra inshi milsa. Generally, when a calamity befalls a person and he's impelled to cry, Bereisha Gonach, first he moans, Vahada Yoliv, and then he sobs. So therefore, it makes more sense to say that Shua would be a Shavarim. First he moans, oi, 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 and then he cries, oi, 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 oi. Now, everybody look on the bottom. Right column, the second paragraph. Some Rishonim. That would be in number 43. I'm skipping it over there to some Rishonim. Offer a novel resolution of the Geonic custom, which before you'll read about it, which was a whole different thing, based upon a responsa of Rav Shvira Gaon and his son Rav Hai Gaon. They ask a piercing question. Can it be that until the times of Rav Avu, nobody fulfilled the mitzvah of Shofar properly? Nobody knew really what a trua meant, so nobody knew how to blow the shofar correctly. Furthermore, how could a doubt suddenly have risen about a mitzvah that is performed by all of Klal Yisrael year after year? Rav Shvira Gaon and Rav Hai Gaon responded that under biblical law, Minat Torah, all modes, teruah, shavarim teruah, they're all acceptable. The biblical criteria for teruah is merely that it be a broken sound. In earlier generations, however, varying customs involved, with teruah being sounded in some locations and shivarims being sound in other locations. The differing interpretations of the biblical term teruah and the targums were in Yevava as either sobbing, which is the shvarim, or is the trua, or moaning, which is the shvarim, reflected diverse customs, traditions, not a dispute concerning whether the sound is valid. As Abaye said before, in this matter, the Tana of our Mishnah and the Tana of Brisa certainly disagree. He meant that the Tanoim disagree in practice, for they follow different customs. They do not, however, disagree as to the law. At any rate, the diversity of custom created the appearance of discord. Rav Avu can move to dispel this appearance by instituting the universal use of both customary modes, the shvarim and the trua, and by adding a third one, which was the shvarim and the trua together. Based upon this responsum, the Baal HaMa'or and the Ritva explains that it's enough to observe Rav Avu's enactment before Musaf. And that's how we blow it before Musaf. Before Musaf, we blow first the Tekiya, Shavarim, Teruah, Tekiya. Then we blow the Tekiya, Shavarim, Tekiya. Then we blow the Teruah, Tekiya, the Tekiya, the Teruah, Tekiya. The shofar obligation during Musaf may be discharged by hearing any one of the variant sets of each blessing. Tosfos and the Rambam all who maintain that with the dispersion of the Jews in exile, the single correct manner blessed of the Teruah was forgotten, and Rav Avu's enactment represented an halachic necessity. A fourth custom is attested by Rabbi Yosef Cairo. For kingship, Malchias, Shavarim Teruah is blown 3 times. For remembrance, Shavarim 3 times. And for Shofar Teruah 3 times. No previous source is induced for this custom, but the Be'er Agra, the Vilna Gaon, advances halacha justifications for it. At the end of the day, what is happening by us is as follows. Before Musaf, we blow the 30 of Rabavu. Tekiah, Shavarim, Teruah, Tekiah, Tekiah, Shavarim, Tekiah, Tekiah, Teruah, Tekiah, each 3 times. In Musaf, we again blow his Tekiyas, but we change it. We have a subtle change. Before Musaf, the Shavarim, Teruah, Abenishima, Achas. One sound, one breath. Two. In Musaf and onwards, it's 2 breaths. Shtei neshimas. Two. Got it? So that difference is also because maybe the Shvarim Teruah go together. Maybe you need to blow both, but there's a break between them. By the time you finish figuring out all the permutations, you end up with 90 possibilities. And since we're at 90, we go all the way to 100. Boom. There you go. And now you know how we got to 100. And when you have time, go read over the entire 43. It's fascinating. Let's continue further. 34.84. We got about 10 minutes. If one blew the first set and he stretched out the last tekiah long enough so that it equaled the beginning of the second set, it doesn't matter. He's only blown one because each set is mutually exclusive. Amir Rabbi Yochanan, Shema, I heard. We're now on Amid Beis, 34b1. Okay? We learned like this. Teisha tekiyas b'teisha shayis b'yoyim. If one heard the 9 shayfa blats, tekiya shvarim teruah, tekiya teruah, shvarim tekiya teruah, tekiya, over 9 different hours of the day, Yatsa, he fulfilled his obligation. If he heard 9 blasts over 9 different hours, Yatsa, he fulfills his obligation. But the Brisa continues. If he heard all 9 sounds from 9 different people, 9 different shots in one shot, Lo Yatsa, he's not fulfilled his obligation. If he heard a tekiah from this person and a trua from that person until he heard all 9 blasts, Yatsa, he's Yatsa. Afilu b'sirugin, even if he heard him discontinuously. In other words, he heard the tekiah, took a break, an hour later he heard the shvarim teruah, an hour later he hears the tekiah. It doesn't matter. Afilu kol hayom kula, it works itself out. Umi amar Rabbi Yochanan, achi b'rak Rabbi Yochanan said this. Rabbi Yochanan mishum Rabbi Shimon ben Yochai Tzadok. But Rabbi Yochanan said in the name of Rabbi Shimon ben Yochai Tzadok, B'halal Megillah, regarding Halal and Megillah, the Halal of the Yom Tovim and Megillah Esther on Purim. If one recited the amount, if one paused the amount of time it would take to complete the entire Halal, entire Megillah, she has to go back to the beginning. So you see from Rabbi Yochanan, if I have a lengthy break by the Hallel and by the Megillah, I have to go back to the beginning. I got to repeat. If that's the case, why is it by Shofar I get the whole day to listen to the 9 blasts? Like Kasha. Hadidei, the first one is Rabbi Yochanan's own opinion regarding the Shofar, that you could hear the Shofar all day long. The Rabbi was of his Rebbe, Rabbi Shimon ben Yochai Tzadok. Vididei loy, but his opinion is not like his Rebbe's. But Rabbi Abu was once walking beside Rabbi Yochanan. Rabbi Abu was saying Kriya Shema at the time. When they came to filthy alleyways, Rabbi Abu paused and was quiet. Basa the Aleph, when they exited the alleyways, Amalei, Rabbi Abu said to Rabbi Yochanan, Ma'u Ligma. What's the regarding completing the Shema? Do I continue from where I left off, or do I go back to the beginning? Amalei, Rabbi Yochanan said to him, if you paused enough time to complete the entire Shema, go back to the beginning. So you see, Rabbi Yochanan does hold a break, a lengthy break, is a disqualification. So how come he doesn't say that by Shofar? Says the Gemara, Kamalei.
This is what he meant to say. Lidi day, according to me, Rabbi Yochanan is speaking on himself. Like severely, I did not hold that you were required to interrupt your Shema when we came to these alleys. Since we didn't stop there, we walked right through. I say that you could have said Shema. And I don't hold that any length of pause, as long as you haven't broken your thoughts, right, disqualifies. Lididach, but according to you, the Svirlach, that you do hold. That number one, you weren't allowed to say Kriya Shema, even if you're walking through a dirty place. You're not allowed to you're not allowed to say Kriya Shema. Number two, a lengthy delay is disqualifies. I'm telling you, according to your own ruling, if you paused enough time to complete the entire Shema, return to the beginning. We're talking about on a tainus, on a fast day. And now you know why the next Masechta that we're going to learn is tainus, fast, because the Masechta over here ends about fast. The trumpet blasts that one has to blow on a fast day are not essential one to the other. And the additional blessings that are recited on a fast day are not essential to each other. When we have a fast day, we daven and we add a verse in the Shemona Esrei, Anenu, Aneni, answer me. If one forgets to say Anenu, you don't go back. You don't go back and daven again. It's not ma'akif, and especially in the times of the Gemaras, we're going to learn in the next Masechta, if the rain did not fall on time, and so they started fasting, and still rain didn't fall, they would add additional fast, and they would get more stricter and stricter with the fast, and they would add on a lot more tefillas. Nonetheless, the tefillas themselves were not ma'akif. Now, Tekiyas Ubracha Shel Rosh Hashanah, however, with regard to the Shofar blasts and the blessings of Rosh Hashanah, we're now on 34b2, V'shel Yom HaKippurim, and the Shofar blasts of Yom Kippur are essential ma'akavos. Says the Gemara, my Tama, why are they essential one to the other? Amar Rabba says, Amar HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the Holy One, blessed be His name, says, Amar Lefanei B'Rosh Hashanah Malchus V'chaynis Shofar. Recite before me psukim, verses of kingship, remembrance, and shofar. Malchus Kadesh Tamlichun Aleichem, kingship, so that you may accept my sovereignty on you. Zichroinus Kadesh Yavalifnei Lefanei Zichroinechem L'Toiva, remembrance, so that your remembrance should come before me favorably. Ubameh, and how should this be? How should the inauguration and the remembrances of your good deeds come? Shofar, with the sound of the shofar. The Mishnah went further. Misha Beirach v'achikav nimnana lo shofar, right? Taiku Maria v'taiku. One who davens musaf without blowing shofar and then afterwards gets a shofar should blow tekiah, teruah, tekiah 3 times. Tama d'lo have a shofar mi'ikara. That's only because he didn't have a shofar to begin with. Ha'havele shofar mi'ikara, but he did have a shofar mishamalei. Then when should he hear the shofar blast? When should they be blown? I say the bracha is shemalu. You should hear it within the orders of the blessings. Blow by malchus, blow by zecharitis, blow by shofar. And that's what we do. That's when we blow shofar. We blow shofar in Musaf when we read about kingship, when we read about remembrance, and we read about shofar. Now, Papa Bashmuel Kamlitzaylu. Papa Bashmuel went to daven in private on Rosh Hashanah. Amalei l'Shemaya, he said to his attendant, Ki nahar nalach, when I signal you that I've completed each blessing, tokali, blow the shofar for me. Amalei Rava said, Rabba loy amru ella b'chebe'ir. They said to integrate the shofar blast with the blessings are only in the prayer of the congregation. One who prays privately does not do this. So this is Nusach Sfard. In Nusach Sfard, by the Hasidim and by anybody who does Nusach Sfard, you blow shofar in the quiet Shemona Esrei, in the silent Shemona Esrei. When the Chazan finishes the blessings of Malchus, of kingship, he bangs, and that's a signal that the shofar should be blown. When he gets to Zecharinis, he bangs, and the shofar is blown. And when he gets to Shofris, the shofar is blown. That's because Rava said in a that would be the proper way to integrate that in the praise of the congregation. But a private person should not do that. A private person should do the way Ashkenaz does it, which is only blown by the Haichish Esrei, which he doesn't have a Haichish Esrei. Person who davens by himself, but he should blow it afterwards. Tani Nami Hachi, Kishuhu Shaimin, when one hears the shofar blast, Shaimin ala Seder should hear them in the proper order, Malchus, Zecharias, and Shofars. I'll say the brachas and within the orders of the blessing. Where am I talking about? In a congregation of the city. If he's not if he's praying without a congregation, I'll say the brachas. Here's the shofars in the proper order, but not within the order of the blessings. And considering an individual did not hear the shofar, his fellow was allowed to blow it for him. And that means, for an example, I used to do this and probably still do it, that I went to people's houses who couldn't make it to shul on Yom Kippur, on Rosh Hashanah, and I would blow shofar for them after I finished davening and they finished davening. Sometimes they were in the middle of the meal, right? And we blew the shofar. Okay, now, and for an individual who did not yet recite the prayers, his fellow cannot daven for him, right? Every individual is expected to beseech Hashem on his own behalf rather through an agent. This obviously only applies to one who is able to daven. One who is not able to daven certainly is allowed to follow along with the schaver's davening. U'mitzvah b'toikin yoisem min ha'mevarchim. And we're on 34b3. And it is a greater mitzvah to be with those who sound the shofar than with those who pray on Rosh Hashanah. Ketzad, what do we mean? Shnei Eros. There are two cities near a person. A person is living between two cities. So he's living between Boca Raton and what's the beach over there called? The Deerfield Beach. Okay? In one city, they're sounding the shofar. In the other city, they're davening. They have the chazan. Go to the place to blow shofar and not to the place of davening. Pshita, ha'araisa, ha'rabanan. The mitzvah of the shofar is biblical. Davening musaf is only rabbinical. Says the Gemara, what do I need to tell you? You didn't need to tell me this. Like that even if the one davening, it's a certainty. They hired a chazan. He's certain. And the shofar blowing is only a probability. They're not sure the Baal Tekei is going to show up. Go there anyways. Why? Because suffik diaraisa is l'chumra. A suffik, an uncertainty in a biblical it's obligation. We're machmir, we go strict. Now, Kishem, you guys are okay? We can still keep going because I'm trying to get us towards the end. Jerry, Jeff.
Okay.
Good. Kishem shat shliach tzibur chayiv kach kol yochid v'yochid. Just like as the emissary is chayiv to pray, so too every individual is chayiv to pray, and the individuals are not yoitzi from the shliach tzibur. Do not fulfill their obligation by the leader. Rabbi Gamliel argues and says, don't be ridiculous. The shliach tzibur, he is the messenger of the congregation. And yes, if you listen to his davening, the public can be yoitzi. And that's the way we hold. And this is a machlekes for an entire year. Tanya, we learned in a brayso. Rabbi Gamliel, they said to Rabbi Gamliel, according to your words, that the shliach tzibur is moitzi the olam, the shliach tzibur for discharges the public's obligation. Lama tzibur misfalim. Why does the congregation at all daven? Why is there such a thing as the quiet Shemona Esrei? There should only be the loud Shemona Esrei. Amalahem, Rabbi Gamliel said to them, so that the emissary of the congregation can prepare his own prayer while the congregation is thus occupied. Okay? So the preparation was essential when prayers were recited without the benefit of a written text. There was no publishing houses in those days, and most of the time they had to do it by heart. Okay, according to you, according to you, if the emissary of the congregation is not moitzi, does not discharge the public's obligation, then what do we need him for? Why do we have a shliach tzibur? Amalai kedei lahoitzi and she'ena baki. In order to discharge those who are not competent, those who do not know how to daven, they can certainly be moitzi from the shliach tzibur. Amalahen kishem shemaitzi she'ena baki. If he's already going ahead and discharging the obligation for those who do not know how to daven, he certainly can discharge the obligation of those who know how to daven. At the end, the sages agreed to Rabbi Gamliel that the Shliach Tzibur could discharge everybody's obligation. It's still a machlokes, the sages still haven't conceded. Shama Rabbi Chia Barei de Rabbo Bar Nachmeni. Rabbi Chia Bar Nachmeni heard this from Rabbi Bar Chana in the name of Rabbi Yochanan that the Chachamim conceded. Azal Omer l'Shamata Kamedi Rabdimi Bar Chanina. He said this and repeated it to Rabdimi Bar Chanina. Amalei Rabdimi told him, Hachi Omer Rabba Dainu Machlokes. Rabbi said it's still an argument. Amalei Rabbi Bar Chana Nami Hachi Kamen. Rabbi Bar Chana, who reported in the name of Rabbi Yochanan, also said, Ki Omer Rabbi Yochanan Lahash Shemata. When Rabbi Yochanan came to this teaching that the Chachamim agreed to Rabbi Gamliel, Iflig Alel Rabbi Reish Lakish. Rabbi Reish Lakish disagreed with him and said, "Ba'amar Adayinu Machlokes, still Machlokes." So you see, Rabbi Yochanan and Reish Lakish argued whether the Chachamim agreed to Rabbi Gamliel or not. Umi Amar Rabbi Yochanan Hachi, but did Rabbi Yochanan really say that the Chachamim conceded to the opinion of Rabbi Gamliel that the Shliach Tzibur, it discharges the obligation of the people. But Rabbi Chana of Tzipari said in the name of Rabbi Yochanan, Hilchasa Rabbi Gamliel, the halacha follows Rabbi Gamliel. Hilchasa, when it says the halacha follows, Michlal means the pligi that the Chachamim are arguing. So you see that it's not universally agreed to. We're now on the last Amid, Lamed Hey Amid Aleph, the last Amid of the Masechta, tomorrow's daf, 35a1, Shabbos' daf. Kisolik Rav Abba Miyame Perisha. When Rav Abba returned from a journey from sea, he explained it like this: Moedim Chachamim and Rabbi Gamliel. Rabbi Yochanan's statement that the Chachamim agreed to Rabbi Gamliel v'brachis of Rosh Hashanah b'Shem Kippurim regarding the lengthy davening of Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur of Yovel. In his statement that the halacha implies that there's an argument with brachas to Chol Hashanah regarding the prayers of the entire year. The prayers of the entire year, the Chachamim said people should know. It's one thing if they don't know the big tefillos of Rosh Hashanah and Kippur. It's another thing entirely that the rest of the year they should know the tefillos. They should know the prayers. Ain is this true? This implies that the Chazal argued on Rabbi Gamliel even in the tefillos of Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. What does it mean that that the Chachamim agreed with Rabbi Gamliel's opinion regarding the tefillos of Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur of Yovel? Reb Meir, it's Rebbe Meir. Halacha called the pligi, and according to this, that it says halacha means that there is still an argument. Rabbanon, it's the other Rabbanons. It's the other Rabbanons. So now we have three opinions. Rabbi Gamliel ruled that the Shliach Tzibur could discharge the public obligation all year. Reb Meir concedes with regard to Musaf of Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, but disagrees regarding the prayers of all the rest of the year. And the other sages even disagree with Gamliel, even on Rosh Hashanah's Musaf. The time, because we learn Baruch Rosh Hashanah V'Shal Yom Kippurim concerning the tefillos of Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur of Yovel, Shliach Tzibur Moitis Harabi B'dei Chavasa. The emissary of the congregation discharges the public's obligation. Divi Reb Meir, the Chachamim Oimen Kishem Shel Shliach Chayiv. Just like the emissary is Chayiv to daven himself, Kach Kol Yochid V'Yochid Chayiv. So too is every individual who knows how to daven needs to daven as well on Rosh Hashanah and Kippur. Why are these tefillas different? Because there's many different psukim in them, verses in them. shuv ein tzarich. As long as one has said, u'b'tayrascha kasav leimar, he doesn't actually have to say the psukim. Elam mishum da ashrei berachos. Rather, the prayers are different because of the blessing which are composed are cumbersome to most people. They're very long. If you'll notice in Shemona Esrei on Rosh Hashanah and Kippur, we always start off the psukim. U'b'sayrascha kasav leimar, and in your Torah it's written, Ki Lashem amalucha Moshe v'agoyim v'ne'emar, and it says, so we take both sides over here, and we say, we actually put in the words v'sayrascha kasav leimar, and in your Torah it is written, right? And we do say the psukim as well. That's today. Gufa, Amar Rav Chanan Amar Rav. Okay, we're now on 35A2. 35A2. Right, so Amar Rav Chanan Amar Rav. Chivon sha'ama u'mitayrascha kasav leima shuv en itzarech. Once someone has said, in the Torah it is so written, he doesn't actually have to say the psukim. Savamine, he means to say to this, Hani mili biyochid. This is by an individual who prays for himself, Aval b'tzibur loy. But with regard to the praise of the shliach tzibur, of the emissary of the congregation, it does not apply. He has to say everything. Itmar, however, we learned on Rabbi Shua ben Levi, echad yachid echad tzibur, whether an individual or an emissary of the congregation. The rule is, once you say in the Torah it's so written, you don't have to say the actual pasuk. We today, of course, do that, and that's the way it is. A person should arrange his prayers in his mind and only then pray. Today, of course, we have a siddur, so it's easier, but even now, once you take a minute to say Hashem and get his thoughts together. Amar Rav Abba, Mistabra Milsa de Rabbi Elazar, Kibracha Shel Rosh Hashanah V'Shel Yom Kippur V'Shel Kippurim. In regards to the praise of Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, and the other special occasions, all the Yom Tovim. Abba D'Chol Hashanah Loi, regarding the regular weekday and Shabbos time, no, it's not reasonable that a person is required to review them in advance, since everybody's familiar with those tefillahs, with those prayers. Aini, but that's not true. Rabbi Yehuda always arranged his prayers and only then prayed, even on the weekdays. Shani Rabbi Yehuda, since he would pray only once every 30 days. He would pray once every 30 days because Rabbi Yehuda would complete a review of all his learning every 30 days. And he was totally engrossed, so he didn't daven those 30 days. So he'd only daven once every 30 days. So even the regular prayers for him were like a special occasions. Amar Rav Acha bar Avira, Amar Rav Shimon Chasida, Pata Hoya Rav Gamliel Afilu Im Shebesados. Rav Gamliel used to exempt the people in the field from davening, for he held that the Shliach Tzibur discharges their obligation even though they're not in shul, which is a dangerous halacha, because then everybody's going to say, "Oh, I got to be on the golf course, so I'll time my golfing for davening, and the shliach tzibur will be yamaytzivi." Okay, so I wouldn't repeat this in Boca Grove. This little shtickle Gemara right over here. So now the Gemara says, this implies that it's unnecessary for a Gamliel to exempt those who are here from prayer. That means those who are in shul. If not, that the guys on the golf course don't have to daven, they can rely on the shliach tzibur. The guys in the shul can certainly rely on the shliach tzibur. Adarabba, but to the contrary, Hani Anise, those who are in the field are forced to skip prayer due to the work. They have to work. Hani Lo Anise, the guys who can make it to shul don't have to be at work. They have no business skipping the tefillas. So therefore, only the people in the field should be allowed to rely on the shliach tzibur. They got to play golf. The guys in the shul don't have to play golf. Tani Abba Bereid Rabbi Yomi Barachia came Rabbi Abba, the son of Rabbi Yomi Barachia, and taught a baraisa. Am sha'achayre kahanim. The people who are standing behind the kahanim when they do the birchas kahanim, the priestly blessings, Eina b'cholim bracha, are not included in the bracha. They need to stand in the front. They need to stand in front of the Kohanim. No, the people in the field are the same way. They're not in the shul. They're not standing in front of the Shliach Tzibor. How could the Shliach Tzibor be mighty? Somebody who's on the golf course. The Gemara concedes. Now, Jerry, this is where you begin from Tana Abba Bereid Rabbi Yomi. This is where you're going to do the siyum. But here we go. Ela ki also Robin, when Robin arrived in Babel, Omer Rav Yaakov Bar Aidi, Omer Rav Shimon Chasido, Loi Potter Rabbi Gamliel Ela Am Shebesodes. Rabbi Gamliel only exempted those in the fields from prayer obligation on the basis of the Shliach Tzibur's recitation. My Tamo, what's the reason? Mishum Danise b'malacha, because they are forced to be occupied in their occupation. If the reason why they're not in shul is because it's the time for golf, the heta doesn't work. I will be here lie. But if they're in the town, they just timing the golf, they figure they'll kill two birds with one stone. They'll golf with the tefillin on and let the shliach tzibor David. No. How did Allah Yom Tov? How did Allah Yom Tov? We shall return to you, Yom Tov. We shall return to you, Yom Tov. How did Allah Yom Tov? We shall return to you, Yom Tov. The Silkalam Masechtas Rosh Hashanah, Silkalam Masechtas Rosh Hashanah, the Silkalam Masechtas Rosh Hashanah, and traffic Rosh Hashanah is concluded. So now I'm going to just make the siyum. But tomorrow, Jerry, please make the siyum with a kaddish in shul after davening. Hadin Allah Masechtas Rosh Hashanah be Hadin Allah. Datin Allah Masechtas Rosh Hashanah be Datin Allah lo nisach minach Masechtas Rosh Hashanah lo nishtani minon lo lo odem lo lo mido se Hadin Allah Masechtas Rosh Hashanah be Datin Allah. Datin Allah Masechtas Rosh Hashanah be Datin Allah lo nisach minon Masechtas Rosh Hashanah lo nisach minon lo lo odem lo lo mido se Hadin Allah Masechtas Rosh Hashanah be Datin Allah. Datin Allah Masechtas Rosh Hashanah be Datin Allah lo nisach minach Masechtas Rosh Hashanah lo nisach minon lo lo odem lo lo mido se rotzim ufnei Hadin lo leim leim sen shtei trosim uno sen bel bazeh. Saying when you want to learn about Chanina about Papa, Romi about Papa, Nachman about Papa, Achoy about Papa, Abamari about Papa, Rafim about Papa, Rochus about Papa, Sarcha about Papa, Ada about Papa, Doru about Papa. Harab no other Noel, was to be sorry, so we feed with fees, Amkabay, so we need Kulona, after we say to Enu, we say to Evan, say to Amkabay, so Kuloni, Yodishmak, Meloni, so certainly small. We all by the Hak baby, Mr. Secretary, he be some of the book of the Mama in voice. The oil of the yes, we could give Bobchini, Sonny, Baruch, Adi, no, Imam, Denny, who get Amen, 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 Salaboy. Boy, the Manach, Nulfanach, Wadimilla, I shred my smedrash. The Lord Santa Hogan, the Yashin Karam, Shan Maskim, and Hamaskim. Other Maskim, the debate of the Hamaskim, don't be Taylor. Other made them, Hama made them, other made them become Socha, the Hama made them, and become Socha. Ani Rotzim, and the Ham Rotzim. Anu Rotzim, the Ham Rotzim, all the Rotzim, the Chayam, the Ham Rotzim, the Chavesh Shachas. Shahan after the Yim, the Vidim, the Shachas, Anjadam, remember the Yatsi, name, and Yatak Bach. He wrote to the Fanach, the Noel, Hike, Shem, Zani, the Simon, Sectus, was a Shonika, that's in the Haskell, the Sectus, Svaramachem, Simon. The little white little army, Lishma Velasquez, the Kayem is called the Brace Amador, the Sakabiabo. Miss Coletta, no Amaroy, Samidi, Hakami, Yam, the Zari, Shalai Somush, Atari, Mipi, Zari, Zari, Aroilo. This guy in Bibi is Allah, the His Allah. Tadcha oischa b'shach b'chol tishmor alecha. Lakin tzoysi hi si checha. Ki bi yibu yomech b'yasib b'chol shnois chayim oirich yomim imino b'smoila oisha b'chovoid. Adinoi ois liyamo yitein. Adonai yivarech esami b'shalom. Mazel tov. Mazel tov. Mazel tov. Congratulations, everybody. Wow. What a day. What a way to go into Shabbos. Very good. Jerry.